This video looks at the supply and demand equilibrium. An equilibrium is a point of stability. The rock in this picture is not in equilibrium because we expect it will soon move and fall. The rock in this picture is in equilibrium. It can maintain itself in this position for a very long time. In general, when you're in equilibrium, you stay where you are unless outside forces disturb the equilibrium or move you. When you're not at equilibrium, you're moving towards something, usually towards another equilibrium. Markets and objects are frequently not in equilibrium. Take a pencil and throw it in the air. While it's flying through the air, it's not in equilibrium. When it hits the ground and then stops moving, it's in equilibrium again. Of course, if you pick it up and again throw it, it's left its equilibrium and will fall again and eventually find a new equilibrium. The supply and demand determined equilibrium is given by the point where the supply curve intersects the demand curve. In this graph, the equilibrium price is 7 and the equilibrium quantity is 100. That means if the price is 7, it will tend to stay at 7. But if the price is not 7, then the price will move to 7. Let's see this by first considering what will happen if the price goes above 7 and then looking at what happens if the price is below 7. So now imagine that the price is 11. At the price of 11, we can go to the demand curve to get quantity demanded, and that's 60, and the supply curve to get quantity supplied, and that's 130. So this means at a price of 11, people want to buy 60 units of the good, but people want to sell 130. So if this is, say, apples, that means that, a store, every day the store sells 60 apples, but it's taking in 130. So that means every day they're accumulating more and more apples, or they're running a surplus of 70 per day. Now, what should a store do if it's not selling all of its apples? Well, it should lower the price of apples. When you lower the price of a good and there's a surplus, you reduce the surplus for two reasons. Because of the law of demand, as you lower the price, you sell more. And because of the law of supply, as you lower the price, people want to supply you less of the goods. So then let's go back to the store, and let's say the store sets a price for apples, and it sells apples to consumers, and it buys apples from farmers. At a price of 11, farmers will want to sell the store 130 per day, but consumers are only going to want to buy 60 per day. This creates a surplus, and it will be in the self-interest of the store to lower their price. Or if this is happening throughout an entire economy, and there's a surplus of a good, that means there's excess good in the inventories and anyone selling the good, people will lower the price. They'll lower the price so they can sell more of the good by the law of demand, and they'll also lower the price so they take in, so less goods are going to be supplied by the law of supply. People are doing this just because they find it in their self-interest to do so. Now let's imagine that the price in this market is $4. Well, at a price of $4, there's a shortage, because at a price of $4, people want to sell 50 goods, but they want to buy 140. So there's a shortage of 90. What this would mean for our store selling apples is that the store would run out of apples before the day is over. And there'd be customers coming up to the store manager saying, hey, I'd like to buy some apples, but the manager has to say, I'm sorry, we've run out. Well, it's going to be in the self-interest of the store manager to raise the price of apples. When you raise the price of a good that has a shortage, you cut the shortage for two reasons. By the law of demand, as you raise the price of a good, fewer people want to buy it. And by the law of supply, as you raise the price of a good, more people want to supply it. So in general, if there's a shortage of a good, people selling the good will say, hey, I'm not selling all my good anyway, I might as well raise price, and that'll cause me to earn a higher profit. So when there's a shortage of a good, people will find it in their self-interest to raise the price. The reason that the price of 7 is the equilibrium price is because if the price goes above 7, then market forces will push the price down because there'll be a surplus and it'll be in people's self-interest to lower the price so they can sell more of the good rather than having it rot on the shelves. And if the price goes below 7, it'll be in the self-interest of people to raise the price because otherwise they'd run out of the good and they might as well raise the price so they can get more for each good and not anger customers by running out of the good before the day's over. So markets cause there to be an equilibrium, not a shortage nor a surplus, but markets will push price to the point where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. Now that doesn't mean the price will always be at $7 in this market. No more than it would be wrong for me to say, well, pencils are never in the air. No, sometimes pencils get thrown in the air and then they're in the air for a while before they hit the ground. Sometimes markets are not in equilibrium. Sometimes you go to a store and they don't have apples. Sometimes a store has so many apples they end up rotting. But market forces will tend to push prices so that quantity supplied equals quantity demanded, or markets clear. The great economist Adam Smith talked about an invisible hand of the marketplace. The invisible hand of the marketplace are forces, they're forces of self-interest that cause market participants, which are basically consumers and firms, to do things that are in the self-interest of everybody. So there'll be a lot of examples of Adam Smith's invisible hand. Sometimes it works well and sometimes it doesn't. But one thing Adam Smith's invisible hand does do is that it pushes markets to eliminate shortages and surpluses. Right? There's a waste. If there's a surplus, goods are being wasted. And if there's a shortage, people aren't getting goods who want them. So it's a good thing that self-interest causes market prices to adjust so there'll be neither a shortage nor a surplus. But this doesn't happen because there's some government bureaucrat in charge of there not being, shortages or surpluses. This happens because consumers to the law of demand and suppliers to the law of supply find it, in their self-interest to act in ways that push the market price so there'll be neither a shortage nor a surplus. So you can think of Adam Smith's invisible hand of the marketplace as something that causes a huge number of businesses and consumers to do things that are in the best interest of society. Now, sometimes Adam Smith's invisible hand doesn't work very well, like in the case of pollution. But sometimes, as with shortages and surpluses, it works very well.